Inside an industrial processing plant, loose fabric enters the path of rotating equipment during adjustment, turning the work point into a draw-in hazard. At a roadside maintenance area, a dump truck travels close to the shoulder, turning the road edge into an active vehicle path hazard. At a scrapyard loading area, a load is carried across the top of a truck bed when unstable access turns the raised deck into a drop path hazard. At a building demolition site, a reinforced concrete wall section breaks free during demolition, turning the work area into a collapsed zone. At a conveyor discharge end, material retrieval near exposed edges and moving equipment creates an access and draw-in hazard when guarding is missing. Conveyor discharge ends require physical guarding, stable access points, and controlled retrieval methods. Material recovery must use approved tools and procedures while access remains outside exposed edges and moving equipment. At a tire repair workshop, a stationary wheel assembly releases stored pressure during inspection, turning the surrounding area into a pressure release zone. Pressurized tires can fail if internal damage, overinflation, or weakened components are present. Inspections should be performed from protected release zone positioning, using proper inflation and restraint procedures. At a construction site, a suspended bundle of concrete panels slips from a tower crane during lifting, turning the loading area below into a falling load zone. Suspended loads can fall if rigging fails, the load shifts, or lifting points are overloaded. Exclusion zones should remain closed until every load is safely landed and fully supported. At a roadside work area, a tractor towing a large tank passes close to a building corner, turning the narrow clearance beside the vehicle into a vehicle path hazard. Large vehicles towing equipment create wide turning paths and blind zones. Controlled separation should be maintained around moving vehicles, especially near walls, gates, and confined access points. At a scrap collection area, an unidentified metal object releases stored energy during handling, turning the sorting area into a pressure and fragmentation zone. Unknown metal objects can conceal pressurized or hazardous components. Unidentified items should not be struck, dismantled, or handled without proper identification and established safety procedures. On a highway maintenance lane, a roadwork vehicle is parked for traffic control when an approaching truck enters the work zone, turning the shoulder into an immediate impact hazard. On a highway maintenance lane, a roadwork vehicle is parked for traffic control when an approaching truck enters the work zone, turning the shoulder into an impact hazard. Inside a steel fabrication workshop, a large steel plate tips while being repositioned, turning the handling area into a compression and tipping zone. Large steel plates can become unstable as they rotate or lose support during handling. Controlled lifting, proper bracing, and exclusion zones are essential until the load is fully secured in its final position. At an amusement ride, a moving swing arm is used as an improvised access point as the rotating structure sweeps through its travel path, creating impact and fall path hazards. Amusement rides must remain off-limits while in motion. Rotating structures create changing pinch points, impact zones, and moving clearances that can remove safe access space. Inside a woodworking shop, a large sheet panel kicks back from a sliding panel saw during cutting, turning the machine's feed area into a direct strike hazard. Large sheet materials can bind, twist, or shift during cutting if they are not fully supported or correctly guided. Stable in-feed support, proper alignment, and keeping clear of the kickback path are critical. On a narrow residential street, a loaded garbage truck turns toward the roadside as a bicycle travels alongside, creating a side sweep and blind zone hazard. Large collection trucks have extensive blind zones and require extra space when turning or pulling toward the curb. Controlled separation should be maintained around the sides and front corners of moving heavy vehicles. At a heavy-duty tire workshop, a truck wheel assembly releases stored pressure during servicing, turning the surrounding work area into a pressure release zone. Multi-piece wheel assemblies and pressurized truck tires can fail if damaged, improperly assembled, or serviced while still under pressure. Pressure should be fully controlled and approved safety procedures followed before handling. Inside a manufacturing facility, plastic material is fed into a processing machine when the rotating in-feed pulls material inward, turning the feed point into an entanglement hazard. Machine in-feed points can draw in materials with strong force. Feeding, clearing, or guiding material should only be performed with proper guarding, approved tools, and the machine isolated whenever access is required. Inside a fabrication workshop during a routine break, a large upright steel panel loses stability, toppling into the nearby walkway and creating a tipping load hazard. Store large steel sheets and fabricated panels in engineered racks with positive restraints. Secure every upright load against tipping. Establish exclusion zones and keep access or break areas separated from unstable stored materials. On a roadside in front of a cargo truck, spilled flower seeds scattered across the lane create cleanup exposure as the truck begins moving forward. Keep cleanup activity away from vehicle travel paths and blind zones. Secure the truck, control traffic, and confirm the area is clear before any movement begins. Inside a warehouse aisle, a forklift makes contact with a loaded pallet jack, sending the stacked load toppling into the adjacent work area and creating a falling load hazard. Keep loaded pallet jacks clear of forklift travel routes and secure stacked materials against tipping. Maintain separation between moving equipment and stationary loads and keep impact zones free from unnecessary activity. During interior demolition, a masonry wall being chiseled loses stability, sending a large section into the work area and creating a falling debris hazard. Assess structural stability before chiseling masonry walls. Install temporary supports where needed. Follow a controlled demolition sequence and establish exclusion zones around partially weakened structures. At a vehicle service ramp, a white SUV accelerates up the incline, overruns the stopping area, and enters the access zone. Separate access zones from vehicle ramps with fixed barriers. Control vehicle speed, verify the path ahead, and keep ramp exits clear before any vehicle movement begins. A ramp changes vehicle angle, weight transfer, and braking margin. If throttle input is too high or braking is delayed, forward momentum builds quickly. Once the vehicle reaches the top of the incline, limited stopping distance can carry it beyond the intended path and into nearby access areas. Vehicle ramps need controlled movement, clear exit space, and physical separation from surrounding access zones. On a narrow neighborhood street, a wheeled excavator traveling forward closes on a slow-moving roadside path, turning limited clearance into a collision hazard. Separate public walking routes from construction equipment movement. Reduce speed on narrow roads, maintain full forward visibility, and stop whenever the travel path is not fully clear. On a road construction site, a moving road roller enters the active work lane, closing distance with a nearby work zone and creating a vehicle path hazard. Separate equipment travel lanes from active work zones using barriers and controlled communication. Maintain safe clearance around compactors, reduce travel speed, and confirm the path is completely clear before moving. Road rollers have large front blind zones created by the drum and machine frame. Their heavy operating weight produces substantial momentum and long stopping distances, especially at low visibility. Once an obstruction enters the travel path, limited sight lines and braking capability greatly reduce the opportunity to avoid a collision. Heavy compactors should operate only within controlled work zones with clear visibility, defined separation, and continuous path verification. Inside a heavy vehicle workshop, a stacked equipment table loses balance, tipping sideways into the service bay and creating a falling object hazard. Store equipment tables and stacked parts on stable, level surfaces. Secure heavy items against tipping. Keep aisles clear and maintain separation between storage areas and active service bays. At a delivery truck, stacked beverage crates lose stability near the cargo door, releasing a cascading load that spills from the vehicle into the unloading area. Secure stacked cargo before opening truck doors and unload from stable restrained sections. Use load retention systems, inspect for shifted cargo, and keep the unloading zone clear until the load is stabilized. Cargo can shift during transport from braking, cornering, and road vibration. When the door is opened, an unstable stack may already have its center of gravity beyond its support. Removing restraint allows gravity to release the load outward through the unloading path. Shifted cargo should be treated as unstable. Verify load stability before opening or unloading to prevent load release hazards. At a construction yard, portable equipment being handled catches on the ground, creating a trip hazard that redirects access toward the nearby vehicle operating area. Keep hoses, cables, and portable equipment organized and away from access routes. Maintain clear walking surfaces around operating vehicles and separate equipment handling from active vehicle movement zones. During maintenance on a communication tower, a tower climbing system loses stability, creating a fall hazard at height. Maintain continuous fall arrest attachment to certified anchor points throughout tower access. Inspect climbing systems before use, verify all connectors are secure, and ensure every transition remains protected. Tower structures provide limited recovery once stability is lost. If a climbing system becomes disconnected or unsupported, gravity redirects movement downward. A certified fall arrest system is designed to absorb energy and stop movement before the hazard reaches the lower structure. Continuous fall protection and verified attachment are essential throughout every stage of tower access and maintenance. Inside a container yard, a moving forklift enters a shared travel lane as a crossing path converges with the machine's forward travel, creating a vehicle path hazard. Separate crossing routes from forklift travel lanes with designated barriers and controlled access points. Reduce travel speed, sound warnings at intersections, and verify the entire path is clear before proceeding. During fuel transfer beside a service truck, flammable liquid vapors ignite, producing a flash fire across the refueling area. Control ignition sources before handling flammable liquids. Bond and ground transfer equipment. Inspect hoses and fittings. Eliminate static discharge risks. And establish a protected refueling zone with appropriate fire protection. Flammable fuels release vapors that can mix with air within their ignition range. Static electricity, electrical faults, hot surfaces, or sparks can provide enough ignition energy. Once ignited, the vapor cloud burns through the area around the fuel transfer point. Fuel vapors are often invisible but combustible. Proper grounding, ignition control, and safe transfer procedures are essential before every refueling operation. Inside a commercial kitchen, a fully loaded bakery rack becomes unstable during repositioning, tipping forward and releasing multiple hot trays into the surrounding work area. Move loaded bakery racks only on level surfaces and avoid pulling or applying excessive side force. Verify wheel locks, distribute tray weight evenly, and keep travel paths free of obstructions before repositioning. Inside a steel fabrication workshop, a suspended steel beam slips during positioning, then swings through the lift path and drops into the adjacent work area, creating a drop and compression hazard. Suspended load zones must remain closed throughout lifting operations. Verify rigging security, control load movement with tag lines, and keep equipment and materials outside the drop and swing path. A suspended steel beam stores gravitational potential energy while supported by lifting gear. If the rigging shifts, slips, or loses stability, the beam can swing and rotate as gravity redirects it downward. Its large mass can create high contact forces where the beam meets fixed objects. Suspended loads can change direction when rigging or balance shifts. Controlled rigging, exclusion zones, and stable load positioning are essential throughout every lift. Beside a compressed gas cylinder, a pressurized fitting fails, releasing a pressure jet through the surrounding area. Inspect cylinders, valves, hoses, and regulators before use. Secure compressed gas cylinders upright, use components rated for the operating pressure, and keep the discharge path controlled during pressurization. During truck unloading, a suspended stack of large construction panels loses support and rotates from the truck bed into the unloading area, creating a falling load hazard. Keep clear of suspended panel loads and establish exclusion zones during unloading. Use lifting gear rated for the load. Maintain balanced rigging and support panels until they are fully secured before release. Large panel stacks have a high center of gravity and place significant forces on lifting slings and attachment points. If the load becomes unbalanced or support is lost during transfer, gravity can rotate the panels downward and release material beyond the landing point. Large suspended panels require stable rigging, controlled positioning, and clear exclusion zones to prevent load collapse hazards. Inside a meat processing shop, an energized electrical source creates a hidden electrical hazard across the wetwork area. Protect electrical equipment from moisture, inspect cords and appliances regularly, and install ground fault protection. Isolate damaged electrical systems immediately and keep wetwork areas away from energized equipment. Inside a textile warehouse, a forklift carrying a raised stack of fabric rolls loses load stability, releasing the stacked rolls into the travel aisle and creating a falling load hazard. Carry loads as low as practical during travel and ensure they are stable before moving. Avoid sudden braking or turning. Secure unstable loads and keep all travel aisles clear of potential load fall zones. Inside an automated production line, an energized industrial machine starts an active cycle with access points exposed, creating a draw-in and compression hazard. Isolate all hazardous energy before machinery access. Use lockout/tagout procedures, verify zero energy conditions, and keep machine guards, interlocks, and safety systems active during maintenance or troubleshooting. Industrial presses and automated machinery generate mechanical force through hydraulic, pneumatic, or electric drive systems. If a production cycle starts while access points are exposed, moving components can close under operating force. Without energy isolation, the machine continues its programmed motion until the cycle is completed or an emergency stop interrupts the drive. Machine hazard zones must only be accessed after complete energy isolation and verification. Effective lockout/tagout and functioning safety interlocks prevent unexpected machine movement. At a quarry haul road, a large boulder breaks free from an elevated dump area, rolling down the rocky slope and creating an impact hazard. Establish exclusion zones below dumping and rock scaling operations. Inspect slopes for unstable material, control loose rocks before work begins, and keep all access routes outside potential rockfall paths. Inside a narrow driveway, a light truck reverses toward a boundary wall, turning the confined space behind the vehicle into a closing clearance hazard. Reversing zones must remain clear during vehicle movement. Use a spotter or reversing camera where visibility is restricted, and stop movement if the rear path cannot be fully verified. Light trucks have rear blind zones that limit visibility directly behind the vehicle. In confined spaces, reversing narrows available clearance while vehicle momentum continues carrying the truck backward. Fixed structures such as walls or gates create compression points where even low-speed movement can generate high force. Every reversing maneuver requires clear visibility, controlled movement, and protected exclusion zones before the rear path closes. Inside a paper mill, a rotating paper roll pulls loose material into an unguarded in-running nip, turning the production area into a draw-in hazard. Keep all in-running rollers fully guarded. Isolate machinery before clearing jams or threading material. Secure loose fabric and maintain full clearance from every rotating nip point while equipment is operating. Inside a warehouse under renovation, a large masonry wall loses stability during demolition, collapsing across the work area and creating a structural collapse hazard. Plan every demolition sequence before work begins. Establish exclusion zones around unstable structures. Verify temporary support where needed, and use controlled methods that prevent wall collapse. Masonry walls rely on continuous structural support for stability. As sections are removed, the wall's center of gravity and load path change. If enough supporting material is taken away without proper bracing or a controlled demolition sequence, gravity can overcome the remaining structure and bring the wall down with debris movement. Structures can become unstable before collapse is visible. Control the demolition sequence, maintain exclusion zones, and keep access outside the potential fall path. Inside a warehouse, work at height becomes hazardous when an anchorage or fall protection system fails above the storage aisles. Use certified fall protection equipment. Connect only to approved anchor points. Inspect every component before use, and establish a safe work plan whenever tasks are performed at height. At a construction site, a suspended load drops from above into the ground work area, creating a falling object hazard below. Keep suspended load zones fully clear. Inspect lifting gear before every lift. Verify secure rigging and establish exclusion areas until the load is safely landed. Suspended loads store gravitational potential energy while elevated. If lifting gear, rigging, or attachment points fail, gravity accelerates the load downward. The falling mass creates impact forces on contact, while debris and dust can spread beyond the landing point. A suspended load is stable only when fully supported. Control the lift, secure the rigging, and keep the drop zone clear. At a loading area beside a cargo truck, stacked cartons become unstable during elevated handling, causing a fall from the vehicle and creating an impact hazard below. Use stable access equipment for elevated loading tasks. Keep cargo evenly stacked and secured. Maintain controlled access to the truck bed and keep the ground area clear of overhead handling activity. At an industrial loading bay, a suspended steel cylinder breaks free from its lifting sling during unloading, dropping into the unloading area and creating a falling load hazard. Inspect slings, hooks, and lifting hardware before every lift. Verify load weight and balance. Establish exclusion zones around suspended loads, and keep the unloading area outside the drop path until the load is safely landed. Lifting slings experience high tensile forces while supporting heavy loads. If a sling, connection, or lifting point fails, the suspended load loses support and gravity drives it downward. Impact behavior can include bouncing, rolling, or sliding depending on the load shape, surface, and remaining momentum. Every suspended load must be treated as a potential falling hazard. Inspect lifting gear, control the lift, and keep the drop zone fully clear until the load is secured. Inside a metal workshop, loose fabric catches on rotating machinery, creating a draw-in hazard at the workbench. Secure loose fabric and material away from moving parts, keep machine guards in place, and isolate equipment before adjustment near rotating components. During armored vehicle recovery in a forest, the tracked vehicle advances while the travel path remains blocked, creating a vehicle travel path hazard. Establish exclusion zones around moving tracked vehicles, maintain clear communication, verify blind spots, and confirm the full travel path is clear before any movement begins. Tracked vehicles carry heavy mass and have limited close-range visibility. Once movement starts, momentum carries the vehicle forward, while soft ground can reduce steering control and increase stopping distance. A blocked travel path becomes hazardous because the vehicle may not stop or redirect quickly. Heavy tracked equipment needs a completely clear route, confirm visibility, control movement, and keep the travel path clear before advancing. Inside a printing facility, a rotating printing press catches material near an in-running nip point, creating a draw-in hazard around the machine. Keep machine guards in place. Isolate printing presses before clearing jams or making adjustments. Maintain full clearance from moving rollers, and use approved tools for material handling near operating equipment. At a loading dock, a refrigerated trailer loses lateral stability during unloading, tipping onto its side and creating a vehicle rollover hazard. Inspect trailer support systems before unloading. Distribute cargo evenly. Use dock restraints where required, and verify the trailer remains stable throughout every loading and unloading operation. A trailer depends on balanced weight distribution and stable support to remain upright. As cargo weight shifts or structural support changes during loading or unloading, the center of gravity can move beyond the trailer's wheelbase. Once this stability limit is exceeded, gravity rotates the trailer into a rollover. Trailer stability can change during loading and unloading. Maintain balanced loading, secure the trailer properly, and monitor stability throughout the task. At a muddy construction site, a suspended concrete load swings off its intended path and drops into an active work area, turning a routine lift into a falling load hazard. Suspended load areas must remain closed during lifting. Clear lift paths, controlled tag lines, stable rigging, and constant communication keep access outside the drop and swing path. At a loading area, a pallet carried by a forklift becomes unstable, tipping from the forks and creating a falling load hazard beside the vehicle. Verify load stability before lifting. Keep forks properly positioned and tilted, secure unstable loads, and establish exclusion zones around every forklift lifting and unloading operation. A forklift load remains stable only while its center of gravity stays within the support provided by the forks. Sudden movement, uneven weight distribution, excessive lift height, or inadequate fork engagement can shift the load beyond this support. Gravity then causes the load to rotate and fall. An unstable load must be controlled before lifting. Secure it early, control every movement, and keep the load's potential fall path clear. At a construction site, a precast concrete wall panel overturns during a crane lift after rigging loses stability, creating a falling load hazard across the lifting area. Verify the lifting plan, use correctly rated rigging, confirm balanced lifting points, establish exclusion zones around suspended loads, and keep the lifting area clear until the load is fully secured. At a railway platform, cleaning equipment contacts an energized overhead power source, releasing an electrical arc beside the train. Maintain safe clearance from overhead electrical systems. De-energize equipment before cleaning where required. Use approved insulated tools and establish controlled work zones around energized rail infrastructure. High-voltage railway systems can release electrical energy when conductive objects enter unsafe clearance. The energized air can ionize and allow current to jump the gap, releasing heat, light, and pressure at the contact path. High voltage demands controlled separation. Respect minimum approach distances, control conductive equipment, and treat energized railway systems as electrical hazards. Inside an automotive workshop, a heavy transmission separates from the vehicle during removal, dropping into the work area and creating a falling object hazard. Support heavy drivetrain components with approved lifting equipment. Verify all fasteners and supports before removal. Maintain stable positioning and keep the drop path of suspended components clear throughout the task. During elevated work from a boom lift, abrupt movement inside the basket shifts the platform's balance, creating a fall hazard at height. Maintain controlled movement inside aerial lift baskets, stay within platform limits, use fall protection, and avoid sudden weight shifts while elevated. Aerial lift baskets are designed for controlled, balanced loading. Sudden movement inside the basket can shift the combined center of gravity and create dynamic forces through the platform and boom. At height, even a small weight shift can produce platform sway or instability if restraint systems are not properly used. Elevated baskets require controlled movement, fall protection, and balanced loading throughout the task. At a loading dock, a large waste container tips over the edge while waste is being emptied into an open disposal pit, creating a fall hazard. Use designated tipping equipment for waste disposal. Keep safe clearance from open pits. Secure wheeled containers during dumping, and install edge protection where routine disposal activities are performed. During waste disposal, the container's center of gravity shifts forward as its contents move toward the edge. If the wheels pass the tipping point or the container is pushed too far, gravity rotates it into the pit. The movement can also pull connected material toward the opening. Waste disposal near open pits requires controlled handling. Keep containers stable, protect exposed edges, and stop the container before it passes the tipping point. At a construction loading area, a suspended precast concrete beam slips from its lifting rigging, drops onto the transport trailer, and creates a falling load hazard. Inspect lifting gear before every lift. Verify balanced rigging and secure attachment points. Establish exclusion zones around suspended loads, and keep the transport area clear until the load is safely landed. At a loading dock, an unsecured truck begins rolling while loading is still in progress, pulling the trailer away from the forklift. Apply the parking brake. Use wheel chocks or dock locks. Confirm the truck is secured and verify loading conditions before any forklift enters the trailer. Without proper braking or wheel restraint, a truck can move from vibration, slope, or slight engine force. As the trailer rolls away, the dock plate loses support and the forklift loses a stable travel path. The widening gap can create drop, impact, or closing clearance hazards. Loading starts only after the truck is fully secured with brakes, chocks, dock locks, and a final movement check. At a truck loading area, a heavy stack of industrial tires slips from a forklift during handling, dropping into the unloading area and creating a falling load hazard. Keep heavy loads fully secured before lifting. Ensure proper fork engagement, establish exclusion zones around forklift operations, and keep the potential fall zone of suspended or elevated loads fully clear. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.